What's up guys, my name is Brian. We're going to be doing some videos on Star Wars Age of Rebellion RPG from Fantasy Flight. It's a fantastic game, it's an excellent RPG, it's really well made. We're going to be doing some videos on this. So glad to hear that people would like to see some videos, because the problem is there's not a lot of video support when it comes to the Star Wars RPG set from Fantasy Flight. The instructions, the core rulebook's phenomenal, all the supporting stuff with it is phenomenal, Onslaught on Art 1 is great. But for those of you who are in the YouTube generation and the world that we live in where everything is easier and just there's no reason not to have a video for it, figured I would throw together some video tutorials on some basic things to help people get started who have not come from a background of playing RPGs. If you bought the book and you don't have a play group, that means you're probably the GM and the players for now. So let's dive in and take a look at this tutorial. My background in gaming is not RPGs. This is the first RPG I've really played. I had the D20 Wizards of the Coast Star Wars RPG book, core set book when I was in high school. Never played a session because I didn't know how, didn't have anybody to play it with. I just liked the book and thought it would be really cool to play it. This is different. Now my background, again, I come from playing games, miniatures games. I'm a big HeroClix guy. You see some of that back there. Board games, HeroClix, Imperial Assault. I love Imperial Assault. So I'm coming from that kind of background. But when I found this, I was really just excited about how much you can open up those possibilities, because when my nephews and stuff play with me, they're always like, well, what about this? Can I do this or can I do this in a game like HeroClix or in a game like Imperial Assault, where the answer is always no. In a game like Age of Rebellion or Edge of the Empire or Force and Destiny, the answer is sure, roll the dice and see. So we're going to look at a few mechanics right now to just kind of walk you through it. First, we'll start with the dice mechanic. How do you roll the dice, and what are the dice used for in Age of Rebellion? So, what I have here is the dice that come with the Star Wars Age of Rebellion, Force and Destiny, and Edge of the Empire beginner game. They're also sold separately through Fantasy Flight, which I also have a separate pack that comes with this exact dice setup. And this setup is all you need to really play the game. There's no D20s, there's no D10s, there's no D4s or whatever, any kind of that kind of dice. It's just these narrative dice with these symbols on. And it comes in really handy. Now, in the core rulebook, it does talk about having a D10 to use as a number randomizer. In this day and age of number randomizers 1 through 100, it's just not necessary. So you have these dice. So let's kind of break down the different dice and see what they do and see what they're used for. These green dice are called the ability dice. These are used anytime you do a skill check. So if you're familiar with RPGs, you know what skills are. These are your skills, things like piloting, things like charm, things like computers, things like coordination, deception, knowledge. All these are different skills that you would use in a session. And these green dice are the basic building blocks of what's called your dice pool. Your dice pool is what you grab in your hand to roll, and you take the good things, you take out the bad things, they cancel out, and whatever's left is your result. And these are the ability dice. So you've got these symbols here that are used. Fantasy Flight uses symbols that look a lot like this in all the games like X-Wing, like Imperial Assault, and as well as the Star Wars RPGs. This is a hit or a success. Success, basically, you get enough successes against the opposite, which is this purple dice, which is the challenge, or I'm sorry, the difficulty dice. You get enough successes versus these failures, you succeed in the skill check, and then you kind of go with the story. However, these advantage things, this is different. This is what's called part of the narrative dice system in the Star Wars RPG series from Fantasy Flight. This advantage system is neat because if you roll one advantage, you can use it to clear strain. If you roll two or more, certain things can happen with your weapons that invoke a critical hit, or the game master can do something just random and narratively. It can turn into something really cool narratively that happens, where even if you fail the check, something like this is your roll, where it's a failure and 2 advantage. Something still good could happen, even though you failed the skill check. So that's your ability dice. The proficiency dice. The proficiency dice is the yellow dice with the same symbols we just showed, except it has one extra symbol. This one here. This is the triumph symbol. This is the something amazing just happened. You roll this. This is like X-Wings come in and shoot up the enemy and completely clear them out, wipe them out while you're playing. So it's really neat. This is something for narrative stuff. Also, it can deal an instant critical hit or things like that. Just some really powerful stuff with the triumph symbol. Other than that, though, it's just a souped-up ability dice. Lots more hits, or lots more successes, and lots more advantage. And the way skill checks work is you can actually, depending on your ranks and skills, you can upgrade an ability dice to a proficiency dice in part of the dice roll. This is the difficulty dice. These are the exact opposite, same shape and everything, of the ability dice. And these are what's rolled to check your difficulty for a skill check. A basic easy skill check is 1 difficulty dice. So let's say you're rolling a skill check that's 2 green and 1 difficulty, and you roll it out there, and you get this. Well, this is 2 successes and what's called a threat. The threat, sorry, you can't see that. 2 successes and a threat. The threat is what cancels out this advantage, and it's basically the exact opposite of advantage. 1 could cause strain, 2 could cause something even worse to happen, 3 or more could just be something narratively bad that does bad things to your characters, or it causes bad consequences even though you succeed. So you succeed in the skill check, but if you get more threat than advantage, something bad could happen. There's threat, and then there's failure. These failure symbols cancel out successes. So you have this many failures and you have this many successes. It's a wash, and whatever's left you have left. To succeed a skill check, all you have to do is have at least 1 success more than canceled successes. So if you roll this, you cancel. However, if you roll this, where is it? Right here. This is 2 successes and 1 failure. You succeed on your skill check. Now, obviously, you're going to be rolling more than 2 dice, but that's the basic gist. Challenge dice. This is the exact opposite of the proficiency dice. It's red, and it has all the same kind of thing. It has some more failures, more threats, and it has the despair symbol. The despair symbol is the opposite of the triumph symbol, but interestingly enough, this is that terrible thing that happens. You succeed a skill check, but you roll this, and AT-ATs come in and blow up your camp, or you run out of ammo completely in the middle of the battle. Just terrible things can happen if you roll a despair, even if you succeed. Now, we'll start with the boost dice. Now, you could spend 2 advantage to get a boost dice in your next roll, which a boost dice grants you just a better chance. It's got some more successes and some more advantages on there. So that's what that is. It's just literally a boost dice to boost your dice roll. Now, this is at the GM's discretion of when you get this for as well. So let's say there are certain abilities as well, or certain actions like a maneuver called aim, or if you're aiming your weapon, you can get a boost dice. So it's different things like that work with the narrative that give you a better advantage. Let's say if it's foggy out, but you're able to see through the fog, somehow you get a boost dice versus the enemy who can't see through the fog, and vice versa. If you can't see through the fog or something like that, you would get what's called a setback dice, which is our last of the normal kind of dice, and it has more failures and of course more threat on it. These dice can cause complications and could potentially cause you to lose a skill check or fail a skill check. Last but not least is the force dice. It is completely different than any of the other ones. It has white dots and black dots. These go with your force pool, and we'll talk more about force pool later on in another episode, but just know that this dice is there. You'll rarely use it in Age of Rebellion, but there is a section in the core rulebook about the Force and about being a Jedi that we can talk about later. So that wraps up the dice. Again, that's what all the dice do. So let's say, for instance, you're doing a skill check that is, let's say, the character Kale from the beginner game. He has an athletics check of 2 green dice and 1 proficiency dice. 2 ability and 1 proficiency against an easy skill check. You would roll these together, check the results. This is 2 successes, 1 failure, and 1 advantage. These would cancel, leaving you with an advantage and a success. You succeed on the skill check, and you have an advantage left over to clear strain or something like that. So that is how skill checks work. That is what dice pools do. To do a dice pool and to figure out your dice pool, we'll cover that in the actual character creation demo, just because you really need to be looking at the character sheet versus just the dice. So that's the dice. We'll take a look next at character sheets.